Here we are with the composter, and this composter is no ordinary composter. It's been made with bricks, as you can see, and it's made to last. But I had a wooden composter before that, and that's fine, but obviously after 10-12 years it starts to need to be replaced. So what I have here is essentially the final home for my organic material from the kitchen, from the garden, and indeed leaves or indeed any seaweed or organic compost that I have managed to get wherever I've been. But it's mainly from my own garden and from the kitchen. And that has come from the tumbler to this composter, because every time I have waste from the kitchen, it goes into that tumbler, it gets a roll, and after about 6 months I dig out everything in here and use the tumbler contents to build up my compost again. So essentially it's cooking in here, a slow cooker of a composter, you could say. To open it, and I need to open it now because I'm going to take out compost to use in my rhubarb in the front garden, and I'll show you that in a minute. But I want to first of all open the composter, which is a bit like opening Tutankhamun's tomb here actually. But, it has these limestone slabs on the top. And these front boards here, just in these metal runners, are not carrying any weight, they're just holding back the compost. Of course, it has well rotted down now. When I put in the contents, this was absolutely bursting full. But the organic matter really does break down into much smaller. And then this has been just insulating it here. Old carpet. And ventilation. That's one thing about compost, is it does need air, so sometimes if it's too tight it doesn't really break down properly. It's still not fully broken down, but I'm going to take out some of it because I want to use it in around the rhubarb, which is going to be giving us nice rhubarb in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm going to just take some out of the front garden. Now you wouldn't believe this used to be looking very differently. It certainly didn't look anything like the soiled look about it now. It's quite rough compost, there's still bits of wood and that in it, but it'll break down the longer you leave it. There's no sign of kitchen waste or anything in here now because it's completely broken down. The soft stuff's completely broken down. It's only the hard, branchy things that need more time. Well, here in the front garden, what I have is, between my two lovely rowan trees here, enough space to put a couple of crowns of rhubarb. And from last year, I got a fairly decent crop of rhubarb. But what I'm going to try doing this year is to actually force a bit of early rhubarb, and that'll give me rhubarb before otherwise I would otherwise have it. Now I see a little crown head of rhubarb coming up here, and we're just in the beginning of February, so it's got a little bit to go. But as it's starting to grow, I can either leave it and it'll come up and I have rhubarb March, April, May, June, but I could also have it a little earlier if I force it. Now that's an old traditional way of bringing on early crops. When we didn't have access to imports coming from all around the world, we had to try and fill the gaps, the hungry gaps, with early crops. And so one way of doing it is to essentially darken the area around it, which essentially could be done by a bucket, just like that, and putting a brick on, because the winds at the moment would take the bucket away quick enough. I didn't hold it down. The rhubarb is looking for the light, so it's going to continue to grow faster and faster because it doesn't think it's got over the soil yet. So you're playing a little trick on the rhubarb, I suppose, by putting the bucket over it. This was quite a well-developed technique in the 19th century. Victorian walled gardens would have been the places you would have seen this type of construction. Now this is not terracotta, it would be much heavier if it was terracotta, but it's the design of the old terracotta forcing pots, and it has a lid on it so you can look in to see how is your rhubarb doing, and then you can take it off and cut it as it comes up. It's a much pinker, blanched kind of rhubarb, tender, tasty morsel you get from it. Now, I wouldn't do this every year, of course. Next year I'd go to another crown and let that one recover, and the year after that go to another crown and let those two recover, and we do it in rotation. But for the moment, this year I'm going to try forcing this crown here, and because of the wind, and indeed to keep it a little warm, I've taken the compost, some compost from my composter, which is not fully ready, but it's good enough to serve the purpose of essentially acting like ballast, as well as a bit of insulation around that terracotta forcing pot, and it just helps to bed it down. It also, of course, will add to the soil in due course. Any amount of organic matter is welcome in a garden, and this is especially good for me anyway, because it's come from ingredients that I know exactly what went into it, as they were made from kitchen waste and waste from the garden.